ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਗੁਰੂ ਰੂਪ ਗੁਰੂ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਸਾਧ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So Maharaj has blessed us this opportunity to do satsangat, and satsangat is where our mind learns about Vaheguru Ji, Hari, Paramatma. Maharaj in Gurbani says, Satsangat Satgur Chittasal hai, Jita Har Gun Sikha. That satsangat is the school, the classroom of the true Guru, where we learn the qualities of the Lord. Now, without sangat, our mind remains just attached to Maya and has its self plundered on this plane. Basically, our minds have all been given the commodity of swas, the air that we breathe. And that commodity is very precious. We have to use that commodity to get to Nam, the divine word that is inside, so that our mind can absorb into that Nam, the divine word, and then meet the Lord. The Lord, the divine, the origin from where we have all come from. That way, our mind doesn't have to come back over and over again into Maya through the reincarnation cycle, the life-death cycle. Now, if we don't do Sangat, if we don't come into the true congregation, Maharaj says, Bin Sangati sab aise rahe jaise pas tor jin kite tise na janani bin naam sab chor. That without the true congregation, without going into Sangat, without entering that congregation, that company of the holy, the minds that remain on this plane of Maya, they're equivalent to beasts and horrible animals or sickly animals. And they don't realize the one who has created them. And without Nam, without that divine word, they get stamped as being thieves. Now, if we look at the world, all the people that are living out their lives, basically what happens is the mind enters the physical body, and each night it actually departs, or every time one falls asleep, the mind rises above the body. And that continues on until the end, which is death, where the mind will no longer be able to enter this physical body. And everyone within this world that don't realize the divine or don't realize the purpose behind life, which is to meet the divine, they live out their role in life, whatever that may be, mother, father, brother, sister, and we have multiple roles. They live out their life, and then when they leave, they have to give account for their swas, for the breaths of air that they've taken, as to where that expenditure of swas happened. Because few have spiritual knowledge, not many people realize how important it is to use this breath to meditate. And those that don't realize that, then they have to come back over and over again into different life forms. And it's not necessary that they're going to get a human form again. In fact, Maharaj in Gurbani tells us there's 8.4 million forms that a mind can be sent into. The human form happens to be the last step to meet the divine. The human form is the highest of the 8.4 million species or forms that this mind can enter. Now, if we take advantage of this form, if we meet the divine and we have the divine reside within us, then our account of our swas is basically done. Maharaj says in Gurbani, जिनको कृपा करी जग जीवन हर उर धार्यो मन माझा धर्म राय दर कागद फारे जन नानक लेखा समझा. That whoever the Lord shows mercy to, those minds enshrine the Lord within. And the righteous judge, the Dharmaraja, in his court, the papers of our account are torn up because the account has been settled. Now, until we get to that point where our accounting of our swas is settled, what happens is that we are going to have to pay for whatever we've done with our swas. If we've used our swas in expenditure and come out with loss instead of profit, then we will have to come back into Maya. If we've used our swas wisely and got to Nam, the divine word, with our swas, and then we've absorbed ourselves into that divine word, then this account will be obviously settled. But Bhakt Kabir ji tells us, Kabir tale tole din gaya ब्याज बढ़ंतो जाए ना हर भजियो ना खत फटियो काल पहुंचो आए. That tale tole means basically going off course, going left or right instead of staying on the main course, and just being busy in other things that you don't take care of your main mission or your main duty. They said that the day has passed away doing other activities, and the account has had interest grow on top of it now. The account has increased with interest. Na har bhajiyo, na khat fatyo, kal pahuncho aaye. And if we've not meditated on the Lord, that account of ours is still going to be pending. And then when Kal comes, death comes, we're going to have to give account for how much we've saved, how much expenditure we've done. And then our mind is going to be judged as to what form it's going to be sent into. So elders in our community, Punjabi community, they usually say that a person that has a loan on top of their head, they find it difficult to sleep. जिन्हें कर्जा चुक्या होवे उन्हां नूं नींद घट आउंदी है, because they know that they have to pay back their loan. So these swas that we have, we should be considering it as a loan, where there's interest growing on top of it. Now, if we start repaying that by doing meditation, by focusing on Nam, focusing on the Lord, all those swas of ours get deposited back into the bank of the Lord, the bank of the Formless One, Nirgun ka Khazana, the bank of the Formless Lord. it could be that the Lord gets happy with us just seeing us repaying that debt that we have upon our heads, that they clear our entire account. However, if we do not even try to meditate, if we do not focus on the Lord, that's going to be tough. And our account that we're going to have to give is just going to be harder for us to pay back. Now, Guru Sahib in Gurbani says that Ganant Swasa Payan Dharmang, that the righteous judge of Dharma is relentless. He counts each and every breath. Patant mo koop durlabh dehang tat asriyang nanak, that the human body is very difficult to obtain. And the mind has fallen into emotional attachment with Maya. And the only support is actually the Lord. Gobind, 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 Gopal Kirpa. And then Maharaj says that, hey, the Lord of the world, O God, the Lord of the world, Lord of the universe, Master of the universe, please be kind to me. Now, Maharaj is basically telling us, teaching us that we are going to have to give account for every single swas, every single breath of air that we take. Swas means breath of air. So now, how are we spending our swas? How is that counted? Depending on where our mind is, what kind of thoughts and feelings we have, our mind is spending its swas. If we're at tamogun, where we're having negative thoughts, negative feelings, lust, anger, greed, worldly attachment, ego within, at that time, when the mind is at that shop, basically to get those different items, our mind is spending its swas. When we're at rajogun, where we're thinking of just sustenance for ourselves, for our family, work, school, etc., business, our mind is spending all its swas there. At Satogun, when our mind has very positive feelings, thoughts, where it's in humbleness, humility, patience, commitment, truth, contentment, at that time our mind is spending its swas there. But even though that's positive, it's a part of the Triguna. These three groups within Maya, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Satoguna, are the three groups of Maya, and Maya is an illusion. And when our mind is spending its swas, it's actually spending within Maya. Now, the only time the mind actually starts to save its swas is when it rises above Maya, when it focuses in on the divine word, Nam, or the Guru Mantra, like we're chanting Vaheguru, or when it's focused in on Gurbani, or spiritual wisdom. Now, when our mind is listening to or is reciting Gurbani, Guru Mantra, spiritual wisdom, our mind is saving its swas. And that helps us get closer and closer to Nam, to hear that divine word inside. When Satguru sees that we've deposited enough swas, Maharaj blesses us with Nam inside. Satguru Sikh ko Nam tan de, Gur ka Sikh vadpaki hai. Satguru blesses their student, the Sikh, with Nam inside. Now, in addition to where we spend our swas, our actions are looked at as well. Maharaj says, Lekha bolan bolana, lekha khana khao, lekha vaat chalaiye, lekha sun vikhao, lekha saah lavaiye, pade ke puchan jao. That bolan bolana means whatever we talk about. even that's going to be accounted for. What we eat, khana khao, that will be accounted for. Which way we go in life, the path we take, that's going to be accounted for. What we see, what we hear, that will be accounted for as well. And then at the end, Maharaj says, Lekha salvaiye pade ke puchhan jao. In this body, Maharaj says that each breath will be accounted for. You do not even have to go to ask scholars about that. That is something that you are going to have to do. Now, we know that living within this world, that we have to give account for these swas. We learn this through Gurbani. But at the same time, as many people will say, and as Kal pushes into the world, that working within the world is important as well. So how does one keep a balance? So that is something where we have to learn to be samdrisht. Samdrisht means to have sam means balance, drishti means sight. So we have to have a balanced sight when we're going about this world. In Gurbani, Bhagat Trilochan Ji and Bhagat Namdev Ji are mentioned. And in history, we know that they were very good friends. And through Bhagat Namdev Ji, Bhagat Trilochan Ji learned about the divine and also got to meet the divine. One day, when Bhagat Namdev Ji was busy working, Bhagat Trilochan Ji saw that they don't seem to be meditating because they were just looking from the outside and they're not sitting there with their closed eyes and meditating. And Bhagat Trilochan Ji came to Bhagat Namdev Ji and said that it seems that Maya has enticed you, my friend. Nama Maya Mohya Kahat Trilochan Meet. So Bhagat Trilochan Ji came to Bhagat Namdev Ji and he saw Bhagat Namdev Ji doesn't seem to be meditating, he's just working. And Bhagat Trilochan Ji said to Bhagat Namdev Ji, Nama Maya Mohya Kahat Trilochan Meet. It seems that Maya has enticed you, my friend. Kahe Shipo Shayele Ram na lavo cheet. Bhagat Namdev Ji was doing stitching work and Bhagat Trilochan Ji goes to Bhagat Namdev Ji to go, why are you printing all these designs on these sheets? Why don't you focus your consciousness, your mind on the Lord instead? So Bhagat Namdev Ji then responded to Bhagat Trilochan Ji, Nama kahet lochana, mukhte Ram samal. Bhagat Namdev Ji answered Bhagat Trilochan Ji and they said that chant the Lord's name with your mouth. Haath pao kar kaam, sab cheet niranjan naal. With your hands and feet do all your work, but let your consciousness, your mind, remain with the Lord. Now, that's the way to be samdrisht. We are able to work within the world, but our mind is meditating at the same time. When we work with samdrishti, what happens is we are actually saving half our swas at that time. So, for instance, we all took about an hour and a half to do Saskra Simran, Sasa Simran. So, where our mind attaches to the Guru Mantra or attaches to Nam inside and does not have a thought, that portion of our swas, the breath of air that we're breathing, is saved. Where our mind has a thought, that's known as expenditure. That's where we've basically spent our swas. Now, when we're samdrisht, we're trying to keep a balance so that we can work within the world and at the same time we can meditate as well. So what happens is we're basically saving half our swas at that time. Half our swas gets saved by attaching to the Lord, attaching to Guru Mantra, attaching to Nam inside. And half of it's spent doing the work on this physical realm. So we're taking each swas, Each breath of air that we take while we're samdrisht, or we're balanced and working and meditating at the same time, we're saving half that swas. So that's important. And what happens is that pushes our mind to remain above Maya while living within Maya. Just as Maharaj has told us, Jaise jal mein kamal niralam murgaini sane, surat sabd pavsagar tariya nanak naam vakhane. That, for instance, the duck will swim around on top of the water, but when it flies away, the murgabi, the duck, that murgabi doesn't take a drop of water with it. It leaves and doesn't take a drop of water with it once it flies off the water, flies off the lake or wherever it was swimming. Similarly, then Maharaj mentions there the lotus flower, Kamala Phula, that the lotus flower remains above the water, above the mud, above the dirty water. Itself, it's beautiful and has risen above that water. That's the way our mind has to stay within Maya. When we leave Maya to go into our home, as we do every time we fall asleep, we shouldn't be taking any drop of Maya with us. If we end up taking a thought, a drop of Maya with us, that turns into our dream that bothers us at night. And in our dreams, when we enter our dream state, basically what's happening is the swas, the breaths of air that we've deposited, we start to then spend those swas instead. And then we have very little that we've saved. That's why when we stay within the world, we should stay like the lotus flower, Kamala Phul, so that we rise above Maya all the time. We remain above Maya and not get bogged down by Maya, not get filthy by Maya. And our mind remains beautiful. And we can only do that if we meditate at the same time. That's what we should strive for while we're doing our work within this world. So, Kal, on the other hand, Shaitan, Kal is always going to push that have your dhyan in work. Because Kal knows that if you focus in only on your work directly, all those swas are going to be spent in his land. As we see that when we go from one land to another, we go to a foreign country, the merchants there, the government there, will want you to spend so that their area can become rich. Similarly, our mind has left its true home, its true land, which is Agam, Sun, and come into this Pradesh, this foreign area. Jisnu Maharaj ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਮਨ ਪਰਦੇਸੀ ਜੇ ਥੀਆ ਸਭ ਦੇਸ ਪਰਾਇਆ, that all these lands we see in this physical realm are foreign lands. They're not the land of our mind. And Kal is in charge here. Kal obviously will want everyone to spend most of their swas here so that Kal and Kal's 5 generals, lust, anger, greed, worldly attachment, and ego, get stronger and our mind gets weaker. And then our mind forever has to come back into Maya. So we have to be smart. The more swas we deposit, the more swas that we can save, the easier it will be for our mind to detach itself from Maya and forever absorb into the Lord. Now, Kal, through his pracharaks, through his priests that are asleep in Maya, they're always going to get you to focus in on just the physical realm, Maya. But the ones that are connected with Satguru, those that attached to such truth, they will always speak of rising above Maya, connecting with Nam, because that is our mission in life. And that is what Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj and the Bhagats teach us through Gurbani. So ਅੱਜ ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਬੇਨਤੀਆਂ ਸਨ. The basic summary of the program is that save as much swas as possible so that we can get to Nam. And Kal is always going to try to divert our attention into Maya. And we just have to be smart about it. That's why you should be able to judge if someone's preaching on stage, whether Kal is talking through them or whether Satpurk is speaking. Kal is always going to try to divert you towards Maya. So ਅਖਰਵਾਦਾ ਘਟਾ ਪੁਲਚਕ ਮਾਫ ਕਰਨੇ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.